This 1837 map of the Indian subcontinent illustrates an anomaly in global power. The pink areas denote territory directly controlled not by a government, but by a single corporate entity, the British East India Company, while the yellow and green regions represent indirectly managed princely states. To enforce this corporate monopoly, the British relied on a vast native army. They paid local Indian recruits, known as sepoys, to bear arms, essentially paying the population to police their own neighbors. By the 1850s, native Indian soldiers outnumbered occupying British troops 6-1. The East India Company had built a gamble it was destined to lose. The spark arrived in 1857 with the introduction of the Enfield rifle. To load the weapon, soldiers had to bite open ammunition cartridges. Word spread that these paper cartridges were greased with cow and pig fat, forcing Hindu and Muslim soldiers to violate their religious tenets. Faster, more urgent shots of resistance. His actions triggered a chain reaction, and the native military turned its weapons on the corporate officers. Cities like Delhi and Jhansi erupted into ferocious, close-quarters combat. But the mutineers lacked a unified national strategy. Different regions fought isolated, disconnected battles. The British military crushed the rebellion, dissolved the East India Company, and transferred direct control of the subcontinent to the British Crown. After the suppression of the 1857 mutiny, a new generation of Indian intellectuals and lawyers recognized that the British Empire could not be defeated by raw force. They shifted the battlefield from the trenches to the courtroom and the printing press. In 1885, they established the Indian National Congress. These moderate leaders assumed British reason would prevail. They adopted a strategy of prayers, petitions, and protests, drafting formal legal requests to secure rights within the boundaries of British law. The polite approach yielded almost nothing. In 1905, the British administration sliced the massive province of Bengal in half. While they claimed administrative efficiency, the result fractured the population along religious lines and sparked outrage across the country. Legal petitions were ineffective against an empire willing to manipulate a nation's geography and demographics to maintain dominance. A disruptive strategy was necessary. Frustration boiled over. By 1907, the ideological divide within the Indian National Congress between moderates and aggressive extremists collapsed into a physical brawl, complete with flying chairs and thrown shoes, during their annual session in Surat. The trajectory shifted in 1915 with the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi. Rather than debating policy in elite courtrooms, Gandhi traveled the countryside by train. He bypassed the educated elite to speak directly with the impoverished peasant class. He introduced satyagraha, a formalized method of nonviolent civil disobedience. Gandhi mobilized millions of people to participate in the Swadeshi movement, a campaign of economic self-reliance. By convincing millions to boycott imported textiles and spend their own cloth, he attacked the financial engine of the empire. The climax of this economic warfare arrived in 1930. Gandhi and a growing crowd walked 390 kilometers to the sea to harvest their own salt. Defying the British monopoly on a human necessity created a globally televised spectacle of mass resistance. Opening fire on millions of peaceful walking citizens would destroy the empire's global moral standing, but allowing the boycotts to continue would bankrupt the colonial administration. However, the empire did not hesitate to use force when they felt directly threatened. In 1919, British troops barricaded the only exit to an enclosed garden called Jallianwala Bagh and opened fire on an unarmed crowd, killing hundreds. The officers responsible faced practically no punishment. Later, when a protest leader named Lala Lajpat Rai was beaten to death by police batons, the patience of India's younger generation evaporated. Young revolutionaries formed the Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, pivoting back to physical force. To fund their underground war chest, a group of these young men halted a government train near Kakori and robbed the state's tax funds. In 1929, Bhagat Singh and his allies threw explosives into the Central Assembly in Delhi. Their goal was not assassination, but capture. They courted arrest so they could use the British legal system to broadcast their ideology through the press during a publicized trial. Gandhi's boycotts drained the empire's finances, while these armed revolutionaries shattered its physical security. The British administration was stretched thin, fighting a two-front war it was never equipped to win. Entering the 1940s, standard colonial policing was useless. The British were attempting to control a continent experiencing simultaneous, uncoordinated explosions of labor strikes, tax refusals, and armed skirmishes. Then a new threat emerged in Subhas Chandra Bose. Bose fractured away from Gandhi's nonviolent doctrine, arguing that the British would only be expelled by an external military threat. Placed under house arrest, Bose disguised himself and slipped out of the country. He traveled through Afghanistan and Russia, forging wartime alliances with Axis powers during the chaos of World War II. Bose organized the Indian National Army, using thousands of captured Indian soldiers. Suddenly, a Britain consumed by World War II faced the prospect of a full-scale military invasion on India's borders. Localized military mutinies, legal brilliance, mass civil disobedience, and armed revolution combined to make the subcontinent ungovernable. After a century of evolving resistance, the British military and economic grip simply failed.